There is a killer that has been stalking humanity for longer than civilization, longer than agriculture, longer than recorded history. It does not use claws, it does not use teeth. It uses a mosquito, malaria. A disease caused by a microscopic parasite called Plasmodium falciparum that enters your body through the bite of an infected mosquito, invades your red blood cells, and multiplies until your organs begin to fail. Today, malaria still kills roughly 600,000 people every year. Most of them are children under the age of 5. Most of them are in Africa. But in April 2026, a team of researchers from the Max Planck Institute of Geoanthropology and the University of Cambridge published a study that revealed something nobody expected. Malaria did not just kill early humans, it shaped us. For 74,000 years, from deep in the Stone Age until roughly 5,000 years ago, malaria was one of the most powerful forces determining where human populations could live, how they migrated, who they mixed with, and ultimately, how we evolved. Until now, scientists explained early human migration patterns almost entirely through climate. Ice ages pushed people south, warm periods let them expand north. Rainfall determined where forests grew and where deserts formed. Climate was the master map. But this study proved that climate alone was not enough to explain the pattern. When the researchers added malaria risk to their models, the picture changed dramatically. Populations avoided high malaria zones even when those areas had favorable climates with abundant food and water. Entire regions of sub-Saharan Africa that should have been densely populated were empty, not because of cold or drought, but because of a parasite carried by mosquitoes. Malaria was drawing invisible borders across Africa, and human populations were obeying them for tens of thousands of years. To understand why this discovery matters so much, you need to understand how scientists now believe modern humans emerged. The old story was simple. Homo sapiens evolved in one place in Africa and spread outward. One origin, one migration, one birthplace. But a growing body of evidence has shattered that idea. Modern humans did not come from a single location. We emerged through interactions between populations living in different parts of Africa, groups that were separated across the continent for tens of thousands of years, each evolving slightly differently, and then meeting, mixing, and exchanging genes when conditions allowed. This process of separation and reconnection is what gave Homo sapiens its extraordinary genetic diversity, the diversity that allowed us to adapt to deserts, rainforests, mountains, coastlines, and eventually every environment on Earth. And the new study shows that malaria was one of the primary forces driving that separation. By pushing populations out of high-risk zones, malaria fragmented human groups across the African landscape. Some populations retreated to highlands where mosquitoes could not thrive. Others clustered along coastlines where wind kept mosquito populations low. Others found refuge in arid regions where standing water, the breeding ground for malaria-carrying mosquitoes, was scarce. These separated groups developed in isolation for thousands of years. Their genes drifted, their cultures diverged, and when they eventually reconnected during climate shifts that changed mosquito habitats, they brought different genetic packages to the table. If you are finding this fascinating, subscribe to The Odd Vault and hit the bell, because the next part of this story shows how malaria literally rewrote our DNA. The most dramatic evidence of malaria's influence on human evolution is written in our genes. Between 25,000 and 22,000 years ago, a mutation appeared in the human genome, a change in the gene that codes for hemoglobin, the molecule that carries oxygen in your blood. This mutation causes a condition called sickle cell trait. One copy of the mutated gene provides remarkable protection against malaria. 2 copies cause sickle cell disease, a painful, often deadly condition. In a world without malaria, this mutation would have been eliminated by natural selection within a few generations. But in a world where malaria killed millions, carrying 1 copy of the gene was a survival advantage so powerful that natural selection preserved it, despite the deadly cost of inheriting 2 copies. This is evolution in action. Malaria did not just kill the weak. It selected for specific genetic traits. It reshaped our hemoglobin. It determined which humans survived and which did not.
And sickle cell is just the most famous example. Scientists have identified at least a dozen genetic adaptations in human populations that appear to be direct responses to malaria pressure. Variations in genes controlling blood cell structure, immune response, and even blood type distributions across Africa can be traced back to the evolutionary arms race between humans and this single-celled parasite. But perhaps the most remarkable finding from the study is how early humans fought back, long before they understood what was making them sick. Archaeological evidence shows that ancient humans selected specific aromatic plants for their bedding, plants containing chemicals that are naturally insecticidal and larvicidal. They were using natural mosquito repellent tens of thousands of years before anyone knew what a mosquito-borne disease was. They did not know about parasites. They did not know about transmission vectors. But through trial, error, and survival, they figured out that sleeping on certain plants meant fewer bites and fewer deaths. That is not just adaptation, that is innovation. Professor Eleanor Seri, senior author of the study, summarized it powerfully. She said, "Disease has rarely been considered a major factor shaping the earliest prehistory of our species. Our research changes that narrative and provides a new framework for exploring the role of disease in deep human history." Think about what this means. We have spent decades trying to understand why human populations moved where they did, why they mixed when they did, why certain genetic traits appeared where they did. And all along, one of the most important factors was invisible, not in the rocks, not in the climate data, not in the fossils. It was in the buzz of a mosquito. A parasite smaller than a red blood cell shaped the course of human civilization for 74,000 years. It decided where we could live. It decided who survived. It rewrote our DNA. It fragmented our populations and then, when conditions changed, brought them back together, creating the genetic diversity that defines us as a species. We think of disease as something that happens to us. But malaria did not just happen to humanity. It made humanity. We are who we are, genetically, geographically, and evolutionarily, in part because of a microscopic parasite that has been at war with us since before we were fully human. And that war is not over. It is still killing 600,000 people a year. The oldest enemy of our species is still fighting. This has been The Odd Vault. If this unlocks something in your mind, subscribe, because we open a new vault every week. What they didn't tell you, we will.